There's so much out there to prepare teachers for parent-teacher conferences, but what is out there for parents? Like, parents need help too. So what is a true effective parent-teacher conference? Well, stick around to get some tips and tricks on how we can have an effective parent-teacher conference. Hi, my name is Aja. Welcome to Educate Our Youth, where I go over parenthood, parent hacks, and just simply ways to educate your child. If you're interested in any of those things, then subscribe below and make sure you click those bell notifications so you can get weekly updates when I upload a new video. Today, parents, you will learn what is an effective parent-teacher conference and how can you actually take the lead. Their teacher should not be the one always driving the car to their academics. But parents, I'm here to show you exactly how you can take ownership over your child's education. So what is an effective parent-teacher conference? It is simply an exchange of information on all aspects of a child, academic, social, and emotional. A conference is not a confrontation between you and your child's teacher, but it is simply the time for you and the teacher to get on one accord on how you guys can better educate your child. Tip number 1, you can initiate the parent-teacher conference. You don't have to wait till parent-teacher conference time. Ask at open house what is the policy on parent-teacher conferences. Most schools have designated parent-teacher conferences in the fall and in the spring. If your child doesn't have that at their school, then request one. I would simply suggest you to always have a parent-teacher conference in the fall and in the spring. That way you know exactly how your child is progressing as the school year continues. Now parents, drop off and pick up time with your child is not the time to have a conference because they're simply trying to get you out the door. Good morning, Miss T.
Good morning.
I was wondering if I could get on your calendar for a parent-teacher conference.
Of course, what day works best for you?
Thursday.
Thursday is perfect. Can you come at 3?
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Right, no
See you
problem.
Thursday.
See you on Thursday.
Bye, sweetheart. Tip number 2. Prepare questions in advance. Parents, if you want to drive this parent-teacher conference, you must have your questions already prepared in advance. This way you get all the answers that you need and you don't forget anything. Go ahead and make a list of questions and concerns. Most children come home and say they have no homework to do. But if you don't know your child's homework policy, then your child might just trick you and they can be failing all their homework assignments simply because you weren't on one accord with the teacher. Always ask, how can I actually help my child?
Hi. How are you?
I'm good.
Right, let's have a seat.
Okay. Thank you so much for seeing me. I had some burning questions I just had to ask.
No problem. Thank you for coming. Before we start, did you have any questions that you wanted to ask?
Yes. I actually wrote some down. I know last year he was really struggling in math, and I know you have sent home some progress reports. When he comes home, he talks about other students are distracting him in class, and they're playing and so forth. So my main question was, is that distracting him in his work in class?
Well, I try and crack down on a lot of playing when it comes to, of course there's going to be your typical distractions in class, but I try and just, definitely nip that in the bud when I first see it.
Tip number 3, be specific. Don't be vague and just say, what is my child learning? They're not getting it. But if your child is struggling with a particular homework question, take a picture of that question or write that question down. That way you can show the teacher exactly what it is that your child is struggling with at home, and they can actually help you address that actual problem. So I wrote down this problem that he was working on the other day at home, and you gave him a worksheet. And it has this geometry question about the angles and the attributes. He did not know that, and I didn't really know what he was talking about. So can you explain it, exactly what that is?
Yes, I actually have some of his work here.
Okay.
Since we've been working on geometry. With attributes and shapes, it's pretty much just telling us, asking the students to identify the type of shape and how to tell it apart from all the other shapes. So this shape right here might have 4 angles and 4 sides, but this shape...
He's supposed to tell you the number of angles and the number of sides.
Right, and if the lines are parallel...
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
What is parallel?
Well, parallel are two sides that don't intersect or touch. For example, here I have a rectangle. These sides here, when they're continuously going up, they have no way of touching.
All right. That's the only way that we can work with our teachers. If you just say my child doesn't get it, get what? Tell them exactly what it is that your child is not getting. Instead, do tip number 4. Ask, what are my child's learning objectives? Always know exactly what your child is supposed to learn and when they're supposed to learn it. That means you need to ask for the standards, scope and sequence, and learning objectives. Standards are simply, what is your child learning? Their learning objectives are simply ways in which they can master those standards. And the scope and sequence will tell you, when are they actually learning these things throughout the school year? This way you can leave that meeting knowing what your child is expected to learn and when they're actually learning it. Are they learning about shapes, or are they learning about habitats and animals? Ask, what exactly is my child learning? At home, since I know he's struggling, I really try to use Learn Zillion and Khan Academy that you sent home. I really need his learning objectives and his scope and sequence, so I know exactly what videos he can watch at home that align with what you're actually doing in the classroom.
Right. I can definitely get that for you. I can just, it's a quick print and I can get off the printer. If you like, as far as those, I can assign him at-home assignments that go directly with what we're learning for extra practice.
Okay, awesome. If you don't do anything, parents, get the scope and sequence and the learning objectives. That way, throughout the entire year, you can just ask your child about certain topics. If your child doesn't tell you about that topic, chances are they were not paying attention in class. Tip number 5, always ask for data. Now, if your teacher doesn't bring out a sheet of paper showing you your child's data, then ask for it. You have the right to know exactly what your child is doing in class and how they are progressing through their standards. That's the only way you know their progress throughout the school year. If your child's teacher isn't sending their data home, ask for their data. You have that right, parents. Their data is going to show you exactly how they're performing on all these learning targets and standards, etc. But you will know exactly how to actually help your child by seeing exactly what is it that they're struggling with. What is it that they know or they don't know? Ask for your child's scores and where they are supposed to be during this time of the year. If your child takes an assessment such as iReady or FastBridge, those assessments are taken nationally. And any child that takes that assessment, they're kind of ranked. This is known as the National Percentile rate. And that simply compares your child with other students. So higher national percentile ranks, meaning that your child knows more than 70 or 80% of other students that have taken that test at that time of year. If your child's national percentile is low, that means they don't know as much as other students that have taken that test.
Since your biggest concern with him is math, let me go ahead and just show you his data based off of our diagnostics test that we've been taking on him, so that you can see where he's struggling and where he's growing, because he has shown a lot of growth.
Okay.
All right, so here's some data based off of the diagnostics that we've taken on your son. This is where he was, which is a first grade level. So when we tested him again a couple of weeks ago, it showed that he did a 16-point growth. However, it is not on a third grade level. The green represents third grade. He's come from first grade to second.
So is it possible at the end of the year he could be on third?
Yeah, we can push him to be at least at the beginning of third, coming towards the end of second. So if we're looking at breaking down where he's struggling and where he has grown, if we're looking at numbers and operations, what that means is pretty much like rounding and adding a subtraction.
Tip number 6, ask for goals. Know leaving exactly what your child's teacher academic goal is for your child. If your teacher doesn't have a goal for your child, that means you're just aimlessly teaching your child with no objectives, and that is not effective teaching. So if they don't have a goal, you better make sure that they have a goal by the end of your conference, because they should know exactly what it is that they're trying to strive and where they want your child to reach. That way you can get on board and pushing your child and making sure they reach their goal for the school year. I want to be real clear. So his goal at the end of the year is to get at least early third grade according to the iReady diagnostic, correct?
Right.
Okay.
My goal for him is for him to either reach the end of second grade, beginning of third grade.
Okay. Tip number 7, exchange any important information. Remember, the definition of exchange is for you to give some important information and the teacher to give some important information. So if the teacher's doing all the talking, that means it's not a true exchange of information between two parties. Remember, we went over this when we said the word conference. Always tell your child's teacher anything that may affect their learning and their social emotional well-being while at school. It is always important to tell your child's teacher exactly what your child is facing at home. If they're experiencing a death, a marriage, a divorce, a new sibling on the way, all of those things affect their academics and social and emotional well-being. Anything that changes your child's home life can and will affect them while they're at school. In working in the schools, I have seen it firsthand. Kids act differently when they have a new sibling on the way. They start getting jealous. They don't act like that at home. They carry that energy at school. And most of the time, that will interfere with their academics and their learning. So it's always best to allow your teacher to know exactly what your child is going through. You never know, they could actually be assigning computer work at home, and they don't even know that you don't even have a computer at home. So instead, your child's just getting all zeros when it was as simple as you communicating that with the teacher, and that way they can use the computer when they're actually at school. I did want to share something with you. So his father and I, we are expecting a new baby.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. And we're also getting a divorce. So he's kind of going through a lot at home. So that's why I want to really stay on top of it with him and his schoolwork, because I know he's struggling. We're trying to shelter him from what we're, going through at home, but he picks up on, the fact that daddy's not there at night and so forth. Tip number 8, take notes. Throughout the entire parent-teacher conference, have your notepad and start taking notes. You want to make sure that you as a parent have all the evidence you need of your child's learning environment, and also a way to remember exactly what you and the teacher talked about. This way you can actually hold yourself accountable, and you can also use your notes as a takeaway. You know exactly what steps you need to do after that conference and what steps the teacher needs to do. That way, once again, you can hold them accountable. Can he not sit in these groups and sit by himself so he can focus?
Collaborating with other students can definitely help him. I may say something, and if another student tells him, he might understand it a little better. What I can do, I can move him to the front of the room, and then when we are collaborating and doing group work, I can push him back in with his group.
Okay, I would love that. So let me write that down. Tip number 9, bring support. If there's a language barrier between you and your child's teacher, bring somebody that can help translate. If you don't have anybody that can help you, then ask your child's school in advance if they can budget for a translator. Most schools actually have a budget for translators. You just have to let them know in advance so that they can schedule a translator to be at your conference. Tip number 10, always have a positive attitude. A positive attitude can take you a long way. Let's be real. You're not going to get along with every one of your child's teachers. But if you start approaching them with attitudes, they're going to get an attitude and they're going to treat your child differently. It's sad to say, but people actually do this. Remember, it takes a village to raise a child. So your child's teacher is a huge part of their village. Therefore, you need to be on the same page as your child's teacher, even if y'all don't get along. But being on the same page can go a long way in building a healthy village around your child. If your child's teacher's attitude is negative, then address that negative behavior with a positive attitude. Remember, a frown turned upside down is a smile. Now, I don't have enough fingers, but tip number 11, ask about your child's social and emotional state. This always affects their academics. So ask about this, not only because their social and emotional well-being affects their academics, but simply because we want healthy kids. Now, I know Educate Our Youth is all about education and academics, but let's be real. You want to make sure that your child is healthy. Simply as, how is she or he interacting with others? I wanted to know, how is he interacting with other students?
Usually with students that are experiencing change at home or going through a lot, their behavior in class tends to change, their motivations tend to decline. I haven't noticed anything with him as far as behavior or social-wise.
Tip number 12. Always leave with a plan. Because you have been taking notes the entire conference, you want to leave the meeting by going over your notes. That way you can repeat your next steps. Always know, when will a follow-up meeting occur? This way you can both hold each other accountable to get your next steps done before you guys meet again. Go back over your notes and pull out all your next steps that you and the teacher discussed. Going back over something helps you solidify and seal it in your brain. Do you guys have free tutoring or free resources that he can use at home?
Yes, actually, we have an after-school program on Mondays and Wednesdays.
Okay.
And that is our extended learning, and they work on concepts that students may be struggling on. And I can get him signed up for that. We also have a parent resource room.
Just want to do a recap of our next steps. You are about to pull out the printer, your scope and sequence, so that I know exactly what he should be doing at home.
Right.
You will sign him up for extended learning after school program. I will contact the counselor and figure out the day where I can come into the parent resource room.
Right, and I'll also let her know that you're going to contact her, so she may reach out to you first.
Okay, awesome. And I will check out everything that you have included on Class Dojo and also your website with the links.
Of course.
Thank you so much for meeting me.
No problem. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. I've been putting all of my videos in playlists. I have paired this video along with other videos that you would like. So make sure you check them out. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe below, and make sure you turn on those bell notifications so you can get weekly updates when I upload a new video.